Okay, topic number two for the day. Tony and I are here. I'm going to say live. We're live today together, but we're not going to be live by the time you all watch this. But something that came up, we just got done talking, and maybe you didn't watch the other part of this video. And if you haven't, this is your invitation to go take a look. We just got done talking a little bit about fall weed application or fall weed control, winter weed control, spring weed control in alfalfa stands with using some glyphosate or some residual herbicides. But the comment I made was that I just went out there and harvested my alfalfa in October. And Tony, I think this is probably something that you heard me discuss with a group before about, and you just brought it up again, alfalfa weevil mitigation, alfalfa weevil risk mitigation. So I have noticed at some points that we are, well, not just me, a great portion of the United States, and I would say probably everybody west of the Mississippi River has dealt with alfalfa weevils in one fashion or another at some point. In some areas, so dang devastating that I've had guys ready to throw their hands up and say, I am done with this. 2 to 3 applications to get first cutting off. They hang around forever. We've got problems. We don't have a good industry solution for it. But I made some observations at one point, and we know that this alfalfa weevil does an ovipositive eggs in the stem of the alfalfa plant. Well, folks, when the other thing that we talk about in the alfalfa business is kind of the old wives' tale is that you need to have a lot of really good growth in the fall so it can overwinter well. You catch snow, you provide some insulation, all these concepts. Fantastic. That's true. Although, where we have heavy alfalfa weevil problems, Tony, now by leaving the growth that's behind my head in this picture out in that field, we have provided the alfalfa weevil a 74 unit apartment complex to put eggs into to store them for winter so they can hatch next spring. By going and clipping my alfalfa field, and I thought about this while I was mowing about 3 days ago, that I actually left a check on both ends of the field where it was kind of thin and I had reseeded some other alfalfa. I didn't want to go driving through that, so I left a check, and I'm going to see what the weevil pressure looks like where I left alfalfa standing versus where I clipped it off, because now I went from an 18 or 20-inch plant with all that stem to lay eggs in down to a 2-inch, 3-inch stubble. So again, 64-room complex down to a single-room apartment. Now, I think that's a big deal. We remove the eggs, we crush the eggs, they're harvested, they're stored in somebody's shed somewhere down the road. And I have seen side-by-side fields, same grower, same variety. Management was the same, except one field got cut in October, the other field did not. In the spring, when we get warm enough to start hatching eggs, the pressure where the stubble was left was probably 5 times the weevil pressure of where the stubble was removed. So, fact number 1, it's not going to be for everybody's brain. Some of your heart's just not going to take it by getting that stand off of that field. And the first thing that I'm going to get pushed back is, well, now you can't catch snow. Now you have no insulation. Your stand's going to die. You're dumb, Jeff. It's just never going to work. Folks, we have better, more disease tolerant varieties today. Hopefully, some of you are managing your fertility better. You're getting more carbohydrates stored in that root system, a healthier plant, a bigger crown. The management system plays to itself. So we don't always have to have residue out there to make an alfalfa stand live through the winter. And I had this conversation with a bunch of really smart alfalfa people. We're all not Einstein, but we know that we have better genetics today. My alfalfa plant was out there for 55 days since the last cutting, storing carbohydrates, putting it in that crown. I clipped it off. We're going to stay cool. I'll get very little regrowth, if none at all. Save my carbohydrates for spring. My plant is healthy. So don't be afraid of taking it off late, close to a hard frost. Okay? Now, So there was my little cultural management tool. And part of the reason we need that is because we're having a shift in some bug spectrums, Tony. And what's one of our biggest problems with insecticides today, where we're not using that cultural control to try to reduce the numbers?
So yeah, so great lead into this, right? So weevils can be devastating, right? And when we think about, those management practices and oh yeah, you want to have whatever, 24 inches of alfalfa to catch snow and insulate the ground, right? What's the trade-off, right? If the weevils are bad enough in the spring, you're gonna regret having that 74 unit apartment complex for
Yeah.
weevils left over, right? And part of that is, and part of the reason we struggle with weevils is because yeah, you got to be out there early scouting, right? And okay, well, we get out there and we've got all these weevils, time to make an insecticide pass. Well, just like we see with soybean aphids, just like we see with, well, any number of different agricultural pests, we're starting to find, and it's mostly to the west, right? The Rocky Mountain West, we're starting to see a development of pyrethroid resistant alfalfa weevils. Okay, so what does that mean? So pyrethroids are probably the most widely used class of insecticide that we deal with in agriculture today. So products like Warrior, Grizzly 2, Mustang Max, there's so many, right? And they're all pyrethroids. They're all that same family, same class of chemistry. And they're pretty easy to use. They're flexible. They're cheap. They're great. They're wonderful, except now they're starting to not work anymore. And when we lose something like that, then we have to start thinking a lot harder. We have to get a lot more creative. We have to use products that are probably way more expensive and probably that don't work as good, right? In a world without pyrethroid resistant bugs. So it's to your point, the cultural controls, things we can do other than leaning on hard chemistry all the time are going to be really important because when I look at the list of things we can use to control alfalfa weevil, they are expensive. I can speak for South Dakota. We still have Lorsban or chlorpyrifos, right? So Lorsban
Yeah.
is gone, but the molecule's still around. We can use that, but to get to a level where we're going to have acceptable control, then you start stretching out that pre-harvest interval and you start messing with your entire year because we're struggling to get ahead of these weevils. So I
Yeah.
do think it's important to look at different control methods.
So you made a point without even making a point. So I'm going to bring it up. You rattled off about five different trade names that are in the same group that basically affect the insect the same way, and that's the group, and that mechanism is the problem. So, folks, when you go, oh yeah, I rotate my insecticides. I went from Warrior to Grizzly too. You go, oh, well, congratulations. You think that was cool, but it's the same thing, buddy. So we need to make sure that when we are doing this rotation of insecticides, that we are changing the whole group or the whole class so we affect that insect in a different way. So going to your Lohr's band chemistry, and then you've got your is it Savanto? No, I'm trying to think.
Steward from
Steward.
FMC. Good
See,
product.
Savanto is sugarcane aphids. Steward. So changing your classes, and I did an interview with a really smart lady named Erica Rodbell from FGI a few weeks ago or a couple months ago too, and and she has done a lot of work with alfalfa weevils. And so, Tony, in order for us to protect the pyrethroids, we literally have to try to rotate out of those. And if we have a pyrethroid resistance issue, the data would suggest you need to be out of pyrethroids for 5 seasons so that that complex of insects can start evolving back to being susceptible. So it takes about 5 years to get a susceptible population to pyrethroids again. So, folks, if we're not doing it now, think about not using pyrethroids for 5 years. And there's probably somebody going to watch this that has the problem. Red River Valley, a little farther west. I think those issues are out there already. So be paying attention to that, Scout. Think about it. Put a plan together with your retailer. Here's the other thing. Ag retail is not the easiest business, just like trying to farm and grow hay on its own. If you think that they keep every chemistry on the shelf every day of the week, and you're going to drive in and say, hey, I need to change up my insecticide program today, you might be mad. They might not have the quantity you need. They might not have the product you need. So let's lay the plan on a sheet of paper in the system today, get the plan made because, and I'm guilty, dude. Tony, I'm going to confess and say last year, didn't plan ahead. Alfalfa Weevil showed up. It's a Sunday afternoon. Ag retail, most of them don't work on Sunday afternoons. I'm going to spray today because Monday I got to be gone for a week. So I go to the local home store, which is the hardware store, and I buy malathion because that's all I can get. Don't need a license, just pull it off the shelf. Now, did it work? Yes. Was it spot on perfect? No. But I didn't have a plan. Then I was mad because I didn't have 2.5 gallons of insecticide in the back. So make the plan ahead of time, get it on your shelf, or get your plan made with the retailer that's going to do the application so that when you call or you stop in, everything is right where you need it. It's not always a perfect deal, but we can alleviate so much stress and complaining and name calling and coffee shop bullcrap because them god dang guys never have what I need down there, a bunch of dorks. Well, sometimes, folks, you just got to help yourself. Okay, so let's make a plan.
Speaking of planning, I think just with Alfalfa Weevil, we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up like get out there, right? When things start turning green, start scouting, scout, scout, scout. And then after you spray them, scout some more because it seems to me like, and maybe you can comment on this, Jeff, like I feel like Alfalfa Weevil has went from a first cutting pest to a first to a second and a half cutting pest anymore. And I've read some stuff that it's probably a genetic thing, right? Different biotypes of these bugs. We have to watch for them year long because getting ahead of them and staying ahead of them, similar to the weed control discussion we had, that's how we win.
Yeah, so right, folks, and I think the magic number is somewhere about 275 growing degree units. So kind of keep an eye on that. We're going to start getting some of those fall laid eggs are going to start hatching, and the adults are going to become active. And then somewhere right around, and so these are older published numbers. I think Erica's got some different philosophies right now, but 275 and 500 are the triggers that I remember. It's going to be geographically different. I spent 20 years scouting South Dakota alfalfa, and usually, if you are north of Highway 14, probably you might be able to take first cutting, but then you got to really be watching them in the first part of June. I would stay south of 14, at least south of Interstate 90. You're probably going to make an application prior to your first cut and then continue to watch. But yeah, to your point, things have stretched out. And I think part of it's we get some weird temperature inversions that we never did before. It seemed like we get cold and warm and it screws up that growing degree unit piece. But yes, they seem to be stretching out couple cuttings instead of just one and done and you don't have to worry about it again. And literally I made a comment this week too about cutting my alfalfa. I had a few adult weevils crawling around on top of the cutter head when I got done. So they're active right now. They're out there laying eggs. If you're really good at tracking alfalfa weevils, then you go spray some adults this fall too while you're doing, maybe you do some of that as you're, I don't know. They could be out dinking around, but I don't think they like real cold weather and they don't like real warm weather. So we get down in the 50s and 30s at night, they probably aren't so active again. But some things to consider. I don't have if I had a silver bullet, Tony, we'd both be doing something different because I'd take everybody I know along. But they're a problem.
Yeah, it's weed control, insect control. Maybe next time we'll do a piece on disease control and then we'll have this alfalfa thing licked, huh?
Right on. Next up, diseases. Y'all have a great day. There's a little tidbit on alfalfa weevils. Be thinking about it. Be diligent. Definitely scout your damn fields, because if you can see weevil pressure from the road at 55 miles an hour, folks, she's all done and over. You might as well just get the bush hog out and start over, because you got stems left at that point. So you got to scout. You can't do it. And I would say, just kind of like some of these other, we talk about fall armyworms and how they can just blow up. Alfalfa weevils are the same way, folks. You can check them on Thursday, come back on Monday and have a full-blown disaster, depending on the heat units and the weather over that time period. If they just blow up, you need to know. So don't think you're going to scout every 10 days and get by. It's probably a 3-day scouting schedule once things get started to do a really good job. So thanks again, Tony. Have yourself a good day. We'll catch y'all later. It's Jeff Jackson, the Forge Fanatic.